Hey guys, welcome to Finally Clicked, the podcast where we discuss business, leadership, and personal development. My name is Margaret Smith, and I'm the Director of Operations for Pickett Street Properties, a real estate team out of Bothell, Washington. And I'll be here every week with our owner and team leader, Jesse D. Moore. We'll be digging into concepts and ideas that have helped us both personally and professionally. And you'll also get a chance to hear from local and national experts that we know provide massive value to get to the point where it all finally clicks. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Finally Clicked with Margaret. This is now the third time that I have recorded this intro because I'm totally unsure of how to begin. When I was thinking about who to interview while Jesse was gone on vacation, I thought long and hard about a lot of different options, and I reached out to different people. I wanted, no matter what, before we record each episode for Finally Clicked, we think very carefully about how we want to inspire and make an impact and speak to people and share what we believe has helped us personally in our lives and in our business. And so it should be no surprise to me that I've chosen two operations gurus, Hallie Warner before last week, and then this week, Ada Alvarado, two people that have absolutely had an impact on my life. And Ada, I've only known for maybe 8 months. So she's out of this Bellevue, Washington area. And so here at Finally Clicked, the studio is out of Bothell, Washington, which is just north of Seattle. And here at the Keller Williams Market Center, we host the Pacific Northwest Operations Mastermind. And it's a monthly meeting where admin that are in real estate or mortgage can come together once a month from 11:30 to 1. And we have a very structured time together. I like to make sure that we do everything with intention. And it's not just a time to vent or unnecessarily gossip or do anything like that. It's very purposeful. We also always need time to vent. I truly believe in that with friends or with people that, will understand. But the purpose of this mastermind is very much to realize the community that we have out there. And so we come together, we have a speaker, we have a book that we're reading. So we discuss the book for the first half hour, and then the last hour is with a speaker. And this last mastermind that we had for July, I asked if somebody was available to speak, and Ada kindly agreed to last minute. And she led us through an exercise where we really looked at and evaluated the people that we have in our circle. So it prompted me because I've really wanted to spend some time with her. I wanted to hear her story. And I had gone to Spokane, Washington to teach my class called Make It Rain Together, which is about the partnership of the owner and the executive assistant or operations guru. And when I was in Spokane, Ada, before I left, she was like, you got to meet my friend Kelsey. You just got to meet Kelsey. She's a great person. I know you'd love to network with her. And whenever I hear this from someone, I'm absolutely like, oh, yes, I'm in. Like, just give me their phone number. I will call them. I have no problem reaching out to someone. So I reached out to Kelsey and we met for dinner. And immediately, we talked I think we were there for 2.5, 3 hours. And over a bottle of wine and some great food, we talked and learned a little bit about each other. And then she asked me probably about halfway through the dinner, hey, you know that Ada's been through like this amazing life experience and she's survived and has this story. And I said, oh no, she hasn't actually told me the story yet. And I think I understood why. But more than anything, I'm always a curious person. Before even Kelsey had told me this, I had told Ada that I wanted to hang out with her. And we were going to swap stories about dating because that's something that we're both experiencing right now. And though I also felt like she had something to share with me. And I never know if that's true or not, but I really, like I've talked a lot about on this podcast, I believe in following my intuition. And when Ada walked into the room for the first time, I'll never forget, she's one of those people where I said to myself, I want to be friends with that girl. Yeah. She's got a good vibe and she's got something to tell me. And so I'm really so flattered and so happy that Ada said yes to being on the podcast today to tell her story. And so it's near and dear to my heart because my mom actually also has a different kind of lymphoma than Ada will tell us about. My mom has a non-Hodgkins lymphoma. And so this has absolutely been an emotional morning. And I didn't cry when Ada was talking. I'm doing this intro after I met with her. And I very well might cry right now. And it's not something that I'm going to edit out. And you can hear me, I'm talking myself through this right now. I'm not going to edit myself out because I believe in being completely, I believe in vulnerability very much. But it's very hard to listen to her story. It's super hard. So I'm very, very honored that she would share it with us, and it does nothing more than make me want to hang out with her again. She's a very strong person, and I appreciate discussing things with her. We have different opinions, and I love that. When I love talking and discussing things with people about life. So I hope that you guys enjoy this episode and that you take from it whatever you may need or want. I know Ada, at the end of it, after we stopped recording, she said, do you think people are really going to want to hear my story? And I said, why wouldn't they? So if you listen to this and it inspires you in any manner, could you do me a favor and just reach out to Ada? And you can either share it on social media and tag her, which I know would just make her giggle, or direct message her on Instagram or Facebook, and I'll put her link in the show notes. But the other thing you could really help me with actually is, you know what? I'm going to address this in the outro. Going to go back. Let's take a listen with Ada right here, and get a pen ready because you're going to want to write some notes. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Finally Clicked. I'm super excited today to be talking with a friend, Ada Alvarado, and we're just going to jump right into it. And I'm going to tell you guys how we met, actually, because it's only been a couple, maybe more like 6 to 8 months that we've known each other.
Yes.
But Ada came into our Pacific Northwest Operations Mastermind group, and we meet monthly here at the Keller Williams Bothell office. And it's a mastermind group of anybody in operations in the real estate or the mortgage world. And so Ada came in, and I was like, okay, this is a cool girl. And definitely started to open up a little bit more. And then I was like, okay, yeah, I want to hang out with her outside of this group. And so today we are here at the Finally Clicked studios, sipping on mimosas. I'm indulging in some donut holes, but Ada's being very, very good, very healthy today. So
I can smell them, so I think that's good enough.
That is good. It's good. So I want you to just tell them a little bit about yourself and right now where you work and how you got into the real estate world.
Really quickly, I just have to tell you, I felt the same about you, and I knew that you're one of those people that what I'm learning now is to choose who's in my circle, and I knew that I wanted to be in your circle, but I knew that I was gonna have to work for it.
Oh my gosh,
so
you're too cute.
Slowly but surely made my way in there. You didn't know, but we were gonna be friends.
I know. Oh, I like that you operate that way. That's literally what I've done with friends before, and I tell them this later, like 6 months down the road. I say I sat down in the room with you, and I was like, she doesn't know it yet, but you're gonna be my friend.
Yeah.
And so that's good to know you operate the same way. No, I believe the same thing. So
yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so I'm currently the operations manager for the Springboard Home Team at Keller Williams in Bellevue. Great team. I've had the opportunity to work with their rainmaker there before I started actually working for him, when he was working for a builder before. I've been there for almost a year. Okay. September will be a year. Yeah, and I kind of do everything for them, so that's what I'm doing now. But I've been in real estate for 9 years now.
9 years.
Started at the front desk at a different company in Coeur d'Alene.
In Coeur d'Alene. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I started there. Thankful for that company that gave me the opportunity to start quite literally at the bottom. Although it's not, you know what I mean? It's where people start. Usually I didn't know anything in real estate, or have any background in it. So it was really nice to learn from the ground up and learn every phases and parts of real estate. So that was really nice.
Okay.
And then eventually came here.
And what drove you to even take that job in real estate?
Ever since I was 18, I remember people always telling me, you'd be really good in real estate. You'd be really good in real estate. And I just thought it was kind of a fancy profession. Like, you'd always see all these people dressed up, showing houses and like in suits. And that always attracted me. I'm still very attracted to that look, except I kind of got rid of the suit situation and just like, I can dress a little bit nicer or whatever. I guess just being around people has always interested me.
Okay.
And talking to people. I want to talk to people for a living, I guess.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think I was talking to my roommate last night, Dan, makes me laugh every time I think about this, because Jesse's always like, you should have like a recap on what's happened with Dan in the week. But this is what happened with Dan last night. We were talking and I was telling him about having brunch with you on Sunday.
Oh, okay.
And I said I loved it because we couldn't meet for happy hour the night since I had dinner with my mom. And you were like, just come to brunch with me and my friend. And I was like, are you sure? Do you want me to like impose on you and your friend's time? And you were like, oh yeah. And then I show up and then Allie's there. And Allie's like, she said the same thing to me. And I love that it was obvious to me that you have a variety of friends and you have no problem like intermixing them, which is a big thing for me because I have a lot of different kinds of friends. And that's what Dan's noticed about me. And I think it's really cool. I think it's actually the way to live. Like I don't ever want all my friends to be the same.
No, I do have a lot of friends, and I love it when they all meet. I actually want everybody to be friends. I have certain friends that are jealous friends, and I don't understand that. Yeah. Because I want my friends to meet everybody and to meet themselves. And if they don't like each other, that's fine. I mean, they don't have to be friends with each other. Yeah. But yeah, I have no problem with that. I think the more the merrier, and you never know who you're going to meet. Yeah. And I think that's what's exciting about it, and
totally
everybody should want to do that.
Yeah, that's kind of the magic of humans. There's a lot to learn. Okay, so when did you get your first operations role after working at the front desk?
So after I was at the front desk, I went into basically like an assistant for hire. So I was an in-house transaction coordinator, except not really, because I only did listing stuff. Okay. And that was a really fun job because it was a combination of both real estate and me just going around and talking to people. That company had 3 offices.
Oh, wow.
And so part of my job was to go and talk to people and be like, what can I help you with today? And I love that part of it, just being able to leave the desk and talk to people. And
were you still in CDA at the time?
Yeah, that was still Coeur d'Alene. So they had an office in Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, and Hayden. Okay. And it was fun to just go around and talking to people, and I think it was a combination of making friends and selling myself so they could hire me. And the hardest part of that job was making sure that, I mean, I would work with 20, 25 agents at a time.
Yeah, it's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
A lot of personalities.
A lot of personalities. Everybody wanted to be number one. And I had to make sure that they knew that they were number one in my book. So interesting job. It was very challenging. I loved it. But that was as far as I could go in that company. And it was very, very clear to me. So I always had this drive to just keep growing and getting higher and bigger, and what more responsibility can I take? And that was the most I was going to do at that company. So I ended up leaving. And then I went and started working for a top producer for a different company, and I became his executive assistant. Okay. And we worked so well together. Him and I, we were killing it. I mean, he was constantly number one. It still is. Yeah. In that area, I still refer everybody to him. Okay. That I know, and he's probably one of the best agents I've ever met. Okay. Worked for him for a year. Was going through a lot of personal stuff, and decided I wanted to leave Coeur d'Alene, and that's how I ended up in Seattle. Okay. And took a job as a transaction coordinator for a team here. Okay. And that quickly, when we moved to a satellite office from our current office, that quickly moved into a very unofficial office manager role. And at that point, I was pretty much doing everything for that job. And you know what it means to do everything, but maybe people out there that are not in the admin world don't know what that means. But I was doing anything from bookkeeping. Wow. Doing a little bit of property management. That team did a lot of off-market deals, so I did a lot of taking care of that. I was mostly on the sales part of it. I didn't do a lot of listings at that point anymore because it just got too much. Okay. The volume that team is doing is insane, and I couldn't do both. Yeah. And even with that team, I hit a ceiling, and I was like, okay, this is as far as I'll go here, and I just have to keep growing. And then I got this opportunity with this team to be their operations manager, and was overseeing the transaction coordinator and doing a lot of operations and making sure that the business was running properly. And
the name of this team again?
The Springboard Home Team.
Springboard Home Team.
Yeah.
Out of Bellevue, right?
Bellevue. Okay. And with them, I had a different challenge, which was creating everything from scratch, which was really nice. Yeah. I researched a lot of software and what was best for the team. And then I wrote how-tos and procedures and manuals. And that was really challenging, sitting there and writing, even though putting what's in your brain that you've been using for years into a manual was pretty hard.
Yeah. It is actually one of the hardest things to do.
It is, because I always want to be, how do you not know how to do this?
Yes.
But it's in my brain and
Yes.
I know how to do it. But putting it into an actual, in words, was hard.
Yeah.
It was harder than I thought it was.
I think it always
to be.
surprises agents that it takes, like when they say, I want you to write an operations manual, they kind of expect you to produce it in a month or a week. And I'm like, to get everything that's in your brain out and down on paper in a way that makes sense to other human beings is absolutely a challenge and takes time.
And overwhelming. I'm not a writer. Like,
Yeah.
I don't write for a living. So for me to, and I love talking to people and being out there and being more, I don't know. It's just sitting in front
You're
of a computer
definitely a social
for hours.
person. Yeah.
Sitting in front of a computer for hours has been a challenge. Writing that. I'm not 100% finished with it, but it's
always like a
done.
work in progress. I feel like it's never done.
No, it's not.
Okay, so when I met you, then we were. I think it was a couple months after that I was headed to Spokane to teach my class, Perspective, which is now called Make It Rain. And you were like, you need to meet my friend Kelsey.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, okay, if anybody that I respect says you need to meet this person, heck yeah, this is happening. So I reached out to Kelsey, and she came to my class, which was amazing. And then we met up for dinner. We actually met up for dinner like the night before with my friend Lene out there. And it was hilarious. And hilarious because we were both like, oh my gosh. And I could see why she thought we should meet. And we talked for a long time that night. And she was like, have you heard Ada's story? I think about halfway through the night. And I was like, what story? And she's like, she's had cancer and she's had like a complete cell replacement.
Cell transplant.
Yeah, transplant. Thank you. So I said, oh, no. That's definitely intriguing. So I actually haven't heard your story. And that's part of the reason why I wanted you to come on the podcast, was to tell it, because I know that it will inspire a lot of people that have maybe not dealt with the same thing exactly, but maybe a family member or friend has. And then also because I purely want to know your story. So I don't know where you begin with that, but I'm going to let you kind of tell it.
Well,
as you want.
I can begin however you want me to begin. I moved to Seattle in July of 2014 and had gotten divorced December of 2013. So I was ready for a new chapter. I was so done with Eastern Washington, Idaho. I just needed a fresh start. And so I came to Seattle, meet new people. I really didn't know anybody when I moved here. So even that was a challenge.
Where's your family at?
They're in Spokane.
Spokane, okay.
And I had some cousins in Tacoma.
Okay.
But Tacoma might as well be,
Yes.
California.
Yeah, totally.
And they were really supportive when I first moved here. I actually stayed with them for a couple of weeks.
Okay.
But once I moved to the city, I was in the city.
Yes.
So I moved here and went to the doctor. I remember I think it was a 3-day weekend in January, and I was out celebrating the Seahawks had won or whatever. And so I was at home just resting. Tuesday I go to work and I'm talking to some friends, and they're making me laugh. And I was like, oh, don't make me laugh because my chest hurts when I laugh. And they're like, I don't think that's good. And I was like, oh, it's fine. If it was like a heart attack or something, I'd be dead by now. It's been hurting since yesterday. And my friend was like, yeah, no, that's not normal. So she took me to the doctor. And long story short, the doctor's like, we need you to come back and discuss your results. And when she said that, I knew something was wrong. So I called her back and I said, no, I don't want to come back and talk about my results. You tell me.
Yeah.
So she said, it looks like you might have lymphoma. And when she said that, my brain it switched lymphoma into emphysema for some reason.
Oh.
I don't know. They sound the same in my weird brain. And I was like, I've never smoked one cigarette in my life.
Yes.
This cannot be happening. And so then, of course, my brain was like, oh, is it serious? And she chuckled and she's like, well, it's cancer. And I was like, oh, okay. What do we do now? So she sent me to a specialist or an oncologist who is, I still call him my savior because he was the best oncologist I could have gotten. He didn't shield me from anything. He was very straightforward. When I met with him the very first night, this friend that took me to the hospital, she's like, just go and see what happens. We'll go out afterwards to either celebrate or drink our sorrows away. And I was like, great, thank you. So of course we get there and he's like, we have to do further testing, but I'm just going to tell you based on your scans, there's like a 1% chance you just have an infection. But I've been doing this for a very long time and I don't think it's an infection. And I was like, great. So we went out and I think I had like 6 dirty martinis. One of the best nights.
Good friends.
We had a great time. And then to be honest, after that, it's a little bit of a haze. It's just a blur. I don't really remember a lot of it. I went back and read my blog because I started a blog when I started doing treatment just to remind me of all the feelings that I was having because I wrote it as I was having them. But I went through a lot of testing, a lot of blood draws. They did a couple of surgeries where they biopsies. So I've been in and out of the hospital a lot. You know, they put me out a couple times to put in a port. Yeah, a lot of things happened while that was happening. And then in the meantime, he was trying to figure out what the course of action would be. So my treatment. And so then after the biopsy came back and I did a full PET scan, they diagnosed me at stage 4 Hodgkins Lymphoma, which is the good kind of Hodgkins. You don't want to have non-Hodgkins. That's the one that's pretty bad.
Hodgkins is the one that you can actually treat, right?
Yeah. So, you know, even though I was diagnosed at stage 4, he's like, you're young. I was 28 at the time when I got diagnosed.
And again, what month and year was it, you said?
It was January of 2015.
January 2015.
Yeah. So he's like 6 months of treatment. You'll be good to go. Like 90% of the people beat it.
Yeah. That's a pretty good percentage.
It's a pretty good percentage. But ask my mom, you know, I've always been the person to defy the odds for good or bad. I don't know. And it was no different this time around. Yeah. 6 months later, everything was looking good at the halfway mark. And by the end of the 6 months, it wasn't. It was, the tumors were actually coming back. So we weren't sure what was happening. So I was that part of that 10% that didn't get cure right away. So that was.
What are they doing? What was the treatment like? Was it?
So I was doing chemo every other week.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And chemo is. Do you know anybody that's ever done chemo? Like.
Yes.
Is your.
So my mom has non-Hodgkin's, so she's never had chemo yet. She's just had the biopsy.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, I did not know that. Maybe you'd mentioned it before. Chemo is not easy, and it starts out.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
It's a sneaky person. I talk about it in my blog. I called it a sneaky little biatch because you think you're feeling really well afterwards, and then it just knocks you out, and it just gets worse every single time. Just when you think that you know what the side effects are going to be, they get worse. I couldn't eat teriyaki chicken for a long time because I didn't know any better. So the very first treatment that I went to, I was starving. I had just gotten off work because I worked up until I had to go to treatment.
Oh, wow.
So I would work until Friday morning.
Yeah. And
then I'd go straight to treatment and then pass out for like 2 or 3 days and then go right back to work.
Wow.
I would remember eating my chicken and then I was like, oh, this tastes awful. So as I was doing chemo, I was eating chicken and it just completely changed the flavor. Oh. Just little things like that. But also your body just gets destroyed. I mean, it's poison going into your body. So I did chemo every other week for 6 months and it didn't work. Facebook actually just with the memories, they just popped up today and but I think it was 4 years ago now, or however many years ago it was, I was doing my last treatment. So we were having like this brunch up on Capitol Hill where a lot of my friends came over. And it was definitely not even close to the end at that point. So it didn't work for the first 6 months and a lot of side effects happened. I lost my hair.
I was gonna say, did you lose your hair?
I lost my hair twice throughout the entire thing.
Oh my gosh! Well, you have such a beautiful face. I'm sure, like even Ada bald would be beautiful.
No, I'm a very shallow person.
Yeah, not to say that I wouldn't miss my hair too. I'm sure.
I had some friends from Coeur d'Alene. I had a very dear friend of mine who was diagnosed with breast cancer a few months before I was.
Oh, wow.
And so she was a huge help to me. Like she did all this research. And so she was basically just telling me her finds, which were also super amazing because I didn't have to do a lot of the research. She'd just be like, do this, go to this company. So I applied to get a free wig from a nonprofit, and they sent it to me right away. They were so nice. They just interviewed me over the phone. And I was so afraid to lose my hair because it'd been something that I've never cut it. It was always long. I have a lot of hair, and as women, we just,
it's part of our identity.
It is.
Yeah.
So that was really hard. So they gave me a wig, and I started wearing the wig as soon as I saw bald spots, because my hair, I have so much hair that it never fell out in chunks like they do what you see on TV, but it would just fall off. I had all sorts of hair coming off, and then all of a sudden I could see spots.
Oh, wow.
And that's frightened me more than I think chemo did. So then we shaved it, and then I started using the wig right away. And people tell me all the time that it didn't look like a wig, but I felt like I was wearing, a wig the entire time. And if you have anybody going through cancer, don't tell them that you look better than you thought they were going to, because that's not a compliment. Don't tell someone who's sick or anything. Just don't say that. It's not a compliment. We don't feel that good because we already know we don't look great. And then when someone says, "Oh, you look better than I thought you were going to look," not the best compliment.
Yeah.
So it didn't work for the first 6 months. We started doing different kind of treatment where I was in the hospital. So it was I think it was a 36-hour constant drip. So I would have to be in the hospital for that one.
That's a different kind of chemo.
Different one to see if that one would work.
Okay.
And that was monthly. And that one was even worse than the first one. The side effects on this one, my doctor was like, "Oh, you'll come in for 36 hours and you'll be able to go right back to work." No, those side effects were even worse. And I don't remember a lot of how I was feeling for that one, because that one I truly couldn't remember.
Wow.
People would come in to see me in the hospital, and I had no recollection of them ever coming. Even now, they'd be like, "I can't believe you don't remember us coming to the hospital." That chemo just probably wiped out half my brain. Wow. It was awful. And then I started breaking out all over my body with that one. So I think I may have been allergic to it. So that did not work out. And at that point I was, for lack of a better word, ready to give up. I just didn't care anymore. I was like, I don't care if I get better. I don't care. It just did not matter anymore. I don't know if I'm going too fast for the story.
No, you're doing good.
Missing a lot of details.
What month are you in now after you're in this second kind of chemo?
Yeah, so I think by this time I'm in October. So I ended chemo.
It's not even a full year yet.
No, because it was 6 months from January, February. So it was about right now that we were finishing up the six month mark from late January. And then I started, I think, in September. So I had a September treatment, October treatment, and I think November. So it was 3 months, and it didn't work. And by this time I was like, I just don't care anymore. I really didn't care. And so I took some time off, and I was like, let me just get it together. I don't want to do any more treatment. Let me just figure it out. And a lot of this is also things that I'm going through on my own. I can't let my family in on this because they're not here. And they did, my little sister basically moved in with me so that she could take care of me. And my mom was coming as much as she possibly could, but she had to work too, you know? So now I have her here, and I feel super guilty because she stopped her life to move in with me.
Are you still working at that time?
Oh, I'm still working. I never stopped working. First of all, I just couldn't afford to keep not work. And I needed the insurance. I mean, it's insane to go through treatment. A lot of inner self-doubt and what am I going to do? Me and my doctor were having these conversations of what we could do. But ultimately, it was me at the end of the day thinking, what am I going to do? Why is it not working? It was really hard. I didn't know why it wasn't working. And it was hard to hear this. And everybody was like, oh, just stay positive. And I do believe that staying positive probably helped, but it was not easy to hear. It wasn't easy to hear, oh, just stay positive, or it's just hair. You're fine. You're such a strong person. And I realized that I was a strong person, but it was a really hard thing to do. So I took some time off. I was just like, I'm not doing treatment anymore. Nobody needs to know. At that point, I was going through 2 treatments by myself because I didn't want any more people in there. For the first 6 months, I had parties at the hospital. A lot of people would show up. We would wear these shirts that say life is beautiful. So much support. And by the end of it, I just didn't care. I didn't want anybody around. I didn't want anybody to see me. I didn't want anyone to feel sorry for me. I think it's because I was feeling sorry for myself. And I didn't need that. I'm kind of a stubborn person. So I didn't want people to see me that vulnerable. I didn't want people to feel bad for me. I think that was the biggest thing. I just didn't want them to feel bad for me. And then another person approached me at that time and was like, I just wanted to check in and see how you were doing. How's treatment? And we were having lunch and I was like, it's not going well. And I just don't care. And she goes, are you open to alternative treatment? And I looked at her and I was like, sure. I mean, why not? I mean, nothing's working, so why not give this a shot too? So she introduced me to this natural doctor. And I remember going there right before one of my friend's wedding. I was dressed to go to the wedding, and I show up, and I'm kind of in a hurry. And the doctor looked at me, and he's like, I don't know if you're 100% committed, because if you come to me, you're going to have to make some huge changes in your life. And I was like, sure, just whatever. I got to go to this wedding and get real drunk, so let's go. So, I paid him $500 that night because it was like the initial fee or whatever. And off I went to the wedding and had the greatest time. And then it was an overnight change for me because at that point, he's like, you can beat this. Like, I can help you beat this. Like, you can't do it with just natural medication, but we can prepare your body to fight not just the cancer, but the drugs. Like, this poison that they're putting in your body is going to kill the cancer, but it's also killing your body. And so you need to fight it. So I was taking like 40 supplements a day. I mean, he put me on one of the strictest diets I've ever been on. And it was an overnight change for me. I couldn't drink alcohol. I couldn't have any sugar, not even fruit. Nothing. I had to make everything myself. And by this point, I'd send my little sister back. Just, she could come whenever she wanted, once in a while, but I just couldn't have people here anymore. It was just too much for me to handle. So I would go to work, come home, make my food for that night, make my food for the next day, and pass out. Just go to bed around 7:30, 8 o'clock. That's just how tired I was always. I didn't have any energy, but the supplements and eating healthy were giving me enough energy to work and prepare my meals. So I was basically working and eating. And then at that point, I started a new type of treatment, which was it was brand new, so it was kind of experimental still. There wasn't a lot of actual cases. All the cases were while it was going through a trial. So it was brand new in the market, and I did it. And that one was not nearly as harsh, but I only did 2 treatments. They were also monthly. Okay. And it was 2 treatments on that, and went back in, and I went into remission. Wow. So for me, I knew that was a huge part of it was the diet and the supplements that I was taking. It wasn't this miracle, drug that all of a sudden cured me when the other ones didn't. But that was just the beginning. I remember getting that call and he's like, you're in remission. Like, we don't see anything. And I was like, great, done. Let's go on. And he goes, oh, you're not done. And so I, again, was like, I can't do the last treatment. You need to give me some time. It's too much because now I'm in remission and now you think that, or you don't see any signs of cancer. So then I met up with him and I said, what do we need to do now? And he goes, well, now we need to wipe your system down and do a stem cell transplant to make sure it doesn't come back.
Wow.
And I was like, fine, let's do it. It's weird. Like I had to go back and read my blog just to even feel those feelings that I was going through, because I think I'm going a little bit through PTSD where I just blocked it out and don't want to feel it. I know it's there. I know I went through, but I don't want to feel it. Maybe at one point I will. Maybe I'm feeling it right now. So I had to harvest my own stem cells. Like they put...
How do they do that?
I think it was about that thick, wide. It was a tube that they inserted into my main artery for 48 hours. And out of it was 2 tubes that came out of it. So it was really thick, so that the blood would come out, go out one way, go through this machine that looks like a turntable, like a DJ turntable. And then it would come back the other way into my body. So that they would harvest the stem cells through it. And I think I had to harvest like 1 million stem cells. And a lot of people usually do it in 2 or 3 days. And I did it in 1 day, which I was very happy about because then I didn't have to do it. But that tube was so deep down into my system that when I went home that night by myself again, because why wouldn't I? I'm stubborn. I remember laying in bed and trying to lay down, but I couldn't because it felt like if I actually lay down, I was going to pull it out. And I was like, I don't think I want to pull out that tube when it's in my... The
tube was still in there.
Yeah, I had to take it home because they didn't know if I had harvested all of them. So I went in, I did the harvest, they had to count them, and then if we had enough, then we were done. If I didn't, then I was going to have to come back in the next day. So I remember going to work the next day with this huge scarf around my neck because I looked like a robot with this 2 huge tubes sticking out, blue and red. I remember the exact same colors. I couldn't turn. It was gnarly. I've been through a lot. It was pretty gnarly. And so they called me and they're like, oh, we got more than we needed, so you can come in and take it out. Well, when they put in the tube, I was knocked out. I went under general anesthesia. When they pull it out, you have nothing. They don't even numb the area. Oh, jeez. So she was like, are you ready? Oh, God. And I was like,
no, I was not.
Sure. And as I said, sure, she yanked it out and I felt it all the way from down here.
Holy crap.
All the way out. And I remember looking at her going, is there a big hole in my neck right now? And she's like, no, it's fine. And I was like, oh my God, this is so bad. I was expecting to see this bloody tube and it wasn't. It was clean, but it was thick. It just was weird that it came out of me.
Oh yeah.
So that was that. And then came the big one. I had to go into the hospital for 30 days. I had to do 1 week of constant chemo, and that chemo wipes down your system, quite literally kills everything in your body. Your blood count has to go down to 0 basically. And I think at 100, I might be needing to be corrected, but about 100 is life threatening. So if you have 100 blood count, you have to go into the hospital and get something, blood transfusion or something. So they have to take my blood down to 0. And I can't move in the hospital because anything, if I bump into something, into someone, I'm at a high risk of bleeding out. And because they wiped down my system and my, I could get sick super easily. Yeah. Like my immune system was gone. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't leave the hospital room and I couldn't have a lot of people come in and see me. So now I'm stuck in this, probably as big as this room. Mm-hmm. It's how big my my hospital room was no outside, nothing. There was a window I could look down, and I remember my nieces, they couldn't come in because they're kids and they are pretty much germs walking around.
Mm-hmm.
So they were down on the street, like waving at me, and that I couldn't see them. It was so emotional.
God.
And you get to a point in the hospital where you think you're going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You're not seeing anybody. You're in bed for the whole time. I had no energy.
Mm-hmm.
I was afraid of touching anything, anybody. And of course I lost a lot of weight when I was in there. So I had to do 1 week of continuous chemo. That's what wiped everything off. And when I was at 0, when I had nothing, then they did the stem cell transplant, which just basically was a drip of my stem cells coming back in. So that was probably the easiest part.
Okay.
And then it took a few days to rebuild my system. But for 2 or 3 days when my blood was at like count 2, once you go to 0, you're pretty screwed at that point, right? Mm-hmm. So being at 2 for a couple of days was awful.
Yeah.
I remember there was so many risks of blood clotting. I was afraid that I was going to die. Not that I was going to die. I was afraid of how my parents were going to take, because my sister died when she was 21. She died in a car accident a few years ago. I had seen my parents go through that, and I was like, my parents cannot take another one. Like, if the only reason why I was fighting at that point was because I didn't want my parents to lose another child. But I truly didn't care. I had it. My body had been through so much. And your brain goes into, we're going to protect you mode. You don't care at that point. Not that you don't care about life, is that you're no longer afraid to die. So you're sitting there.
You're fighting for your parents.
At that point, I'm just fighting for them.
Yeah.
I'm fighting for my parents. I'm not fighting for me. I'm not fighting for anybody else. I'm at this point, I've been divorced and I've been by myself for a while. So I didn't have anybody that I was like, oh, I'm leaving this person behind, or I don't have kids or whatever. So I'm just fighting for my parents. And that's my biggest concern. Like, I had the social worker come in and she's like, what are you concerned about? Like, we're going to make sure, are you concerned that you're going to be in pain? And I said, no. I already know you're going to knock me out. You're going to give me some very powerful drugs. You're already giving me extremely powerful drugs, and I love them. Like, no, I know I'm not going to be in pain. It's them. You always worried about the other person. Even throughout the whole time, I was always like, I'm doing fine. No, I'm not in pain. I'm doing okay. I think I only cried once in front of people. I would cry by myself. I don't think a lot of people know that. But I was always strong. I cried with my mom once, and that was it. I was like, no, I can't do this anymore. I can't show that weakness. So at that point, I was just fighting for them. And then one day, my blood count started to come up, and that was great. So then it came back up to normal.
And during that time, were you able to eat anything?
My meals had to be cooked at home. That was not my regular doctor's orders. That was my natural doctor. He was like, they can be as clean as they want in the hospital. It's still hospital food. We don't know how it's been handled. We don't know where it's coming from. All your meals have to be done, and they all have to be cooked, because anything raw can have any sort of germs that will just take over my body.
Okay.
So
just out of curiosity, did those doctors work together purposefully, or were they very separate?
No, they were working together.
That's cool.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why I loved my oncologist, because most oncologists are like, no, you can't work with anybody else, or we're not working together, which is so stupid.
Yeah.
Why not? They just wanted money. They just want the chemo money.
Yeah.
These guys work together. He's like, you do whatever you want. The only thing is, let me know what you're taking, because I don't want it to have a reaction with the chemo. So that was the only concern. So I would tell him what I was doing. I would tell my doctor what I was doing, or the natural doctor, and they're working together. And that was such a blessing to me, because not everybody does that.
So you're cooking food at home.
Yeah. So my family is now here.
You're still in that month-long process.
I'm still in the hospital for that 30 days. And I was going crazy. I was going crazy not even being able to leave the hospital. I
And
couldn't.
what did you do during the day?
Well, I was pretty sick for a lot of it. You know, the first week I was doing chemo, and that progressively got me lower. I was just living day by day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember a lot of it either. This is another one that I don't have a lot of recollection of people coming in. But I do remember that when people did come in, I always wanted to look my best.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Every time I had any tests done and they would take me out to do some tests, some cute young kid would come in and take my, I don't know, my pulse or whatever. And I'm like, I'm meeting you when I'm sick like this.
Mm-hmm.
This is awful. But that's what the brain does to you, right?
Yeah.
It makes you concentrate on a different thing instead of what you're actually going through. And then, of course, the 1 week of chemo, and then after that, your blood starts going down, and you're just laying in bed. I couldn't watch TV because it would bother me,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't listen to podcasts or
Mm-hmm.
music or whatever because it would bother me.
Mm-hmm.
So really, the only thing that kept me somewhat entertained and not going crazy and at ease is I would make people read the Bible for me. So they would just sit there and read the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I could do. And it calmed me.
Mm-hmm.
I would just sit there and actually try to sleep. But I couldn't watch TV. So
Mm-hmm.
I thought that maybe I could watch TV or draw or paint. But it's not. I wasn't going in there for rainbows and butterflies. I was going in there to fight. I didn't realize it yet. And the doctors don't tell you, I don't think, I think they would scare you. It takes a lot to go through that. So yeah, I started getting better after that, but not all the way because being in the hospital is also not good.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually got a double pneumonia. So I had a double infection, lung infection, fungal infection. So I begged him to send me home because I was going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, you've been taking this really, really, really powerful pain medication, and I need to make sure that we can take you off of it little by little.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, you're fine. It's just pain medication. Just take it off. I want to go home. So he takes me off of it, and I didn't realize at that point that I'd become addicted or to this pain medication. I forget what it's called. Dilaudid. That's what it is. Probably one of the best pain medications any pain medication that goes directly into your veins is pretty powerful. While I'm thankful for it, I went home and had another crash. Like, I wanted to go home because I was so sick of being at the hospital. I was going crazy. So I didn't have a fever anymore. I was good. I had that lung infection, but he said he'll just watch me. I go home and I become a mess. Now I'm afraid of being home because if something were to happen, I'm no longer in a place where somebody could save me.
Mm-hmm.
So I am crying all the time. I don't know why I'm crying. My sisters have to physically pick me up and put me in the bathtub, and I'm still crying. I've lost it. I'm pretty crazy by this point.
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually get sicker, and my infection becomes worse. So then I have to go back into the hospital. And now I don't know if I want to be home or in the hospital because I have all this stuff going on. Then my port got infected, so they had to take it out. That's just side effects and like this wave of things that are still happening of just chemo.
Mm-hmm.
So I go back to the hospital for a couple of weeks, and then I just didn't want to go home. I was like, no, I don't want to go home.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going home. Nope. Something happens like that again. I don't want to be home. What if I don't make it?
Yeah.
I mean, I was living on Capitol Hill and I was going to Swedish. What if I don't make that little bit of a drive?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to die at home, and then this would have been for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then after I was treated at the hospital for a while, I couldn't eat. So they did a central line in my arm to give me that yellow sugary thing.
Okay.
I don't know.
I forget what it's called.
Formula.
Yeah.
So that you don't dehydrate or die.
Yeah.
And I told my doctor, please don't do that, because once they do that, then you're in the hospital for a few more days. They don't just do it for the fun of it, or if you're going to be gone, or if you're are doing better. So, if I kept losing weight, he was going to put me on there. So he gives me 1 day to not lose weight. He's like, I don't want you to gain weight. As long as you don't lose any more weight and you eat, you're good. So I'll call my sisters and I was like, bring me as much food as you can. Like anything that I can just, I started to drink Ensure, yeah. So that I could just not lose any weight. And then the nurse comes that night and lost like 2 more pounds. So he's like, I'm so sorry. And my doctor is the best doctor. I still can email him and be like, this is happening. And he's like, you're fine.
Oh.
And he always responds to me. So it's really nice that he still does that to this day. So I stayed there with that yellow bag coming at me. And finally I got better and he sent me home. I fought that one because I was like, I don't want to go home. And he's like, yeah, you got to go home where you can't be here anymore. You're fine. I can't keep you here anymore. So I did. And then I think that was a very quick version of from beginning to end.
So what month and year was that then when you went home after that?
This was 2016 April. March was when I was in the hospital for 30 days. And then I came out of it in April. And then I proceeded to run 5K in July, like an idiot.
In July 2016?
Yep. Just a couple months after.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. I don't know why I did that.
How did it go? Did you make?
Terrible.
Yeah.
I made it, but I don't know how I did it.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought I was going to pass out so many times. That was actually a big mistake. I should have not been like, oh, I'm fine now. Because at that point I was like, oh, I'm cured. Let's see what we can do now. Let's go for it. When they tell you, when you get this stem cell transplant, you have a baby immune system. Like your system is like a baby.
Yeah.
Even now they call it like your second birthday because your system has been wiped out and now it's brand new.
Okay.
So they tell you, just like a baby, it takes them a little while to get going and to build that immune system.
Probably not running a 5K in the first.
No.
Yeah.
They're like, you're not going to feel normal for at least a year. And I was like, no, watch me. So I started doing things that I wasn't probably ready to do, obviously, right away. But I should have listened. That's a big lesson. I should have listened. I should have let my body.
Had you been doing like some light workouts before then? Had you been wanting to get more active and just?
Yeah, because you miss what you can't do anymore. I hadn't been able to work out for a year, not because I didn't want to, but because it'd been taken away. And so I wanted to get back to that. I was so ready. Now I just don't work out because I don't like it. But back then, it was like everything had been taken away from me. I couldn't eat. I couldn't drink. I love, a mimosa. I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And so as soon as I was out of that hospital and feeling, once that little bit of depression and I was able to get through my addiction to Dilaudid, then I started to feel a little bit better. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be a human again. So I'm going to go and run and I'm going to go and still not drinking, but I'm going to go out with my friends and just push as much as I possibly could, which was a mistake. You start feeling it after that. And then later I got the shingles.
Oh,
I mean, I should have listened. They do know what they're talking about.
Did they give you any sort of a plan for like changing your diet back to what it was? Did they tell you?
Yeah. So that I went back to my natural doctor and worked with him, and he started introducing certain fruits back into my diet. Blueberries were the number one thing that he introduced back. He's like, that's like a power fruit. So you can start with blueberries. And then we did some testing with other fruits. To this day, I limit the amount of like oranges I eat because they have so much sugar. And some people are like, oh, it's honey, or it's good, it's natural sugar, or it's good for you. But what my doctor and a trainer that I then later saw said is that sugar is sugar. When you have it in your body is not like, oh, this is honey, or this is from fruit. Yeah. It's sugar, and it does what it needs to do with it. And in my case, it was turning it completely into fat. So then I went to my natural doctor, and he's like, we need you to lose as much weight as possible. And he's like, not because you need it, but because any fat that you have in your body has all of that chemo poison in it, because fat keeps that. It doesn't release it. It's just there.
Okay.
So it absorbed it, and now it's releasing it into my body because it's there. So he's like, you have to lose it. That's why you're still feeling bad. And it's still part of the reason, obviously, because it was releasing all those toxins back into my body. So I did. I went into a keto diet, and I started to work out. And I lost a lot of the fat and started to feel better. I still have side effects to this day. I look at my scars in the morning, and I'm like, sometimes I like them. Sometimes I'm like, oh, it's like a wounded, what do they call it? Doesn't matter. But I feel like I fought something and survived.
Oh, yeah.
But other times when I'm having a really bad day and I look at him, like if I just happen to look at myself in the mirror and I look at the scars, I get super emotional because it's a reminder of everything that I went through. And sometimes I do wonder, what did I do to deserve that? And I'd never wonder that when I was going through it. I had gone through so much even before that. To me, it was like, why not me? I am not better than anybody else. So it is fair that I get it, because that's how life is. You know, if anybody else can get it, why shouldn't I? I'm definitely not better than other people. But it was after, when your mind starts to play tricks on you, and then you're like, oh, why me? Why did it happen to me? I didn't do anything to deserve it. But that's something that I've had to fight with or through even now. And my team has been extremely helpful, and coming to your meetings have been extremely helpful. Mindset has been a big difference in my life, specifically the last few months.
That's what I was going to ask you about, actually, as like one of the follow-up questions. But I think before I even ask you about mindset, I don't know why this question popped in my head, but I was thinking, so if you could talk to the Ada that was in the hospital at the times when you were not even there for yourself, when you were just fighting for your parents, what would you say to her?
I don't think that I would tell her to fight. It's hard to tell someone to fight when at that point my mind was not in a place where I wanted to fight. And so I forced myself for other people. But I'd already convinced myself that I was fine. I'd lived a life that I was pretty happy with. Even with everything that had happened to me, I was okay. I was truly okay. So I think that I would tell her it was okay. I think I would tell her that, just like what my social worker told me, is my parents are fine. They're strong people. They raised 7 kids. They're not doing bad. And I think I would just tell myself it was okay, and that you did your best. Maybe that's not the best thing, but I think it would have made me feel better. I think we don't know what to say. I've been on this side of things, even with other people that I know are going through it, and they call me for help. The first thing I say is, I don't know what I'm going to tell you, but I can tell you my story. I can tell you how I felt, because you really don't know what to say to them. You don't know what's going to spark something in their brain. And I think my little sister one time told me, I have no idea what to say to you except that this sucks. And I just started crying, and I was like, yeah, it does suck. And I think that's the best description of it. It really does suck. So I tell people that when they're going through it, I was like, I'm sorry, this is going to suck really, really bad. And that's the best I can describe it. But knowing the worst, knowing that it is going to be really bad, I think helps. That's actually one thing that I wish my doctor would have been straighter with me, is how hard it was going to be. because he always made it seem like it was going to be easy. He was really straightforward, but he's like, you got this. You're young. I didn't need to hear that because I prepared myself for the lower. You know, oh, he said it's fine. Well, I'm good to go. But if he would have said this is going to be the hardest fight of your life, but you can do it because you've got the advantage of being young and a relatively healthy body, you'll be fine. But he didn't. And maybe that's another thing I would tell myself. It was really hard, but you did it. Or it's going to be really hard, but you've got this. I think it would have been good, but it does suck.
Did any of your friends, or like, I'm wondering, did you have friends that kind of left that couldn't really witness you going through that? Did you have like friends that moved in and out of your life?
I did.
Okay.
I did. My ex-husband tried to come into my life again.
Oh.
And I was vulnerable. I liked the comfortableness. He was like, I can't believe this is happening to you. You're the best person that I've known. You don't deserve this. I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to text you every day. I want to make you smile. And I'm over here like, oh my God. Okay. Thank you.
Oh yeah.
And then I was like, you're with somebody else. I don't need this. I've got my troop. So I texted him and I said, if you really want to know how I'm doing, I write a blog every week, read it. If you really want to help, I really need money. So I've set up a GoFundMe account. Go donate. Because my blood was getting really low, so I had to do shots on my stomach that I had to give myself every week. Those shots were not covered by insurance, so I was paying like $700 every week for those.
Oh, wow.
Every week. On top of actually having to give myself a shot in my stomach, I had to pay for all that.
Yeah.
And so many people helped, which is how I was able to survive. So I'm thankful for the generosity. But yes, a lot of people now come back and say, I didn't know what to say. I'm sorry that I wasn't there. And all it would have taken is a text, I'm thinking about you, or hi. Anything like that would have made a difference for me in the days that I was feeling the worst. And I'm thankful for the people that are truly my friends that stuck with me. Yeah, a lot of people left. A lot of people couldn't handle it. And situations like this really show who your true friends are and who the people that are going to stick through thick and thin are. And that's another thing that I got out of it. It's who are the people that I want to keep in my life and who I don't. And like I told you last week, if we're not helping each other in any way and we're not being beneficial to one another, you don't get to occupy real estate in my heart. You just don't. It's too precious and life is too short. So
I love that real estate in your heart. So how do you think, how's your mindset changed from not only while you were in the midst of that, but prior to that and now? Like, how has having this experience impacted the decisions that you make, the choices that you've done, like the roads that you've gone down since then?
Yeah. When I first moved to Seattle, I was on a path of destruction. I actually think cancer helped me bring back that a little bit. I was like newly single. I was like, I don't care. I'm just going to go out and have a good time. I was drinking a lot. I was doing all these things. And I was going down a really, really dangerous path. I had just started, but I feel like it was going to go downhill very quickly. And I was here by myself, so I didn't have anybody to talk to. My family wasn't keeping an eye over me. I was just like, it's go time. I still have a good time now, but it's not the same. And I've mentioned this before. I make decisions a lot based on how it's going to not just affect me, but my family. Because I am an extension of who they are and how they raise me. So even in my work ethic, I'm like, if something goes wrong, you're not just looking at me, oh, she's not a good person or whatever. But now it's like a reflection of my family and how I was raised. And I'm not willing to give that a bad reputation. So it's made me really think about the effects of my actions, which I didn't before.
Okay.
I just didn't care. Now that I'm getting past a little bit past the PTSD, because that PTSD is real, and I think in this country we don't really pay attention to it. I totally
agree. Yeah.
And PTSD comes from any sort of traumatic experience. It doesn't have to be the military. It doesn't
Not
have
to
be
mention,
anything.
I mean, you briefly mentioned that one of your sisters died. And then, I mean, divorce, like you've had major life events that some people
I'm going to pour myself a little more.
do it. Like some people like myself have never experienced.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, I can't agree with you more. PTSD is a real thing.
It's a real thing. And if you don't acknowledge it and actually go through with it, then, or fix it or talk to somebody, it stays in there and it comes out in different ways. So I know that was a big issue, and I hid my illness for a while. Then it came back in the form
afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I was still wearing a wig, and I was like, "Oh, it's all good, no big deal." Not hide it from people, but more like it's done. Let's not talk about it.
Yeah.
Like pretend it didn't happen. And then I had to get rid of the wig, and because my hair was growing. What did your wig
look like? Did it look like your hair now?
No, it was longer and black because that's what my hair was before. Right now it's a little lighter. Yeah. Because I'm playing with it, but then I had to get rid of the wig, and then the PTSD really came in because now I felt like there's all these girls that look super cute in a pixie cut, but that's not me. I have pretty strong features. I'm not the most feminine in my looks. You know what I mean?
I would totally disagree with you. I'm not just saying that to say that. I think you're extremely feminine.
Well,
but that's how
thank
you felt.
Yeah. That's how I felt. Yeah. And then it wasn't my choice. I'm one of the things I learned about myself as well is that I fight things that I didn't choose.
Sure. Yeah.
So now I have to wear this pixie, pretend like it's okay, do it. So every morning I have to style it and be like, oh, this is my choice, when it was never my choice. And people are like, oh, you look great. But that was an even harder reminder of everything that I'd been through. So when I had the wig on and I looked in the mirror, I was like, whatever, it looks like I have my hair. It's fine. But when that wig came off and I had to look at myself in the mirror every single day with short hair like that, that was hard. And then talk about my confidence. My confidence I didn't have confidence. People are like, you should start dating again. And I was like, who wants to date a person like me? Look at me. I'm sick. I was sick. I looked terrible. It was a path of destruction for sure. So I had to deal with all of that, brain.
Oh, yeah.
Playing tricks on you.
Almost like what you said about, they had said that your body is like that of a newborn. Almost like you were starting over with your brain too, and your mindset and everything.
Everything. Because just when I think that it was getting better and, I'm done with chemo, or I'm done with the stem cell transplant, or I'm finally home after a month and a half, it's just getting started, right? So the addiction, the PTSD, all that stuff, it's real. I still struggle with it sometimes now. If I'm having a really bad day, or if I go through something pretty bad like I did a couple months ago, it all goes back down to that. Yeah. All those feelings come back up. And it's hard. It's hard. And so mindset has been a huge thing for me, which I struggle with, but it's the one thing that I keep going back to and looking at myself and looking inside and being like, what am I doing? Why am I feeling like this? It's not what other people are doing. Is that I need to. God,
you needed to hear Gary John Bishop.
I know.
I'm sorry for those of you that are listening, but I have to go back to that because you wanted to come to the retreat just to hear her.
Yeah,
him.
I did. But even that was, I truly believe that things happen for a reason. Yeah. I don't think that was my only opportunity to meet him.
I don't think so either.
And it was extremely fair. I couldn't do that to everybody else. In a way, it was a little selfish for me to be like, oh, I'm just here for him.
I'm still glad that you asked, though. It showed me a little bit about. So speaking of Gary, and I don't know if everybody that's listening has listened to the episode where we interviewed him. If you don't know him, go listen to that.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about what you said about mindset and how it changed when you were in treatment, and I can't even imagine where I would be. I can only imagine that I'd be probably somewhere similar. Like you get where you're, like you said, your body just goes into autopilot and you're like survival, and really only survived from my parents. Yeah. So Gary talks about that in his 2 books, like that he hates positivity, and not for the good that it is really, but just because he feels like sometimes it shields you from the real stuff. So how do you feel about it now? Like, I'm curious with what you've been through and how you felt during that. Do you feel like you have real positivity sometimes, or is it hard for you to feel like it's fake? Like,
I definitely fake it.
Okay.
I think that for me personally, I'm a little bit, I agree with him in the same way that I agree with David Goggins when he talks about motivation and how it's not real.
Yeah.
So, yes, I think positivity is so important.
Yeah.
You have to be positive, even if you're faking it.
Yeah.
But I'm actually really honest about faking my positivity.
Mm-hmm.
So I walk into a room and I'm super happy all the time. And I'm like, happy Monday, happy Tuesday. I should trademark that. It's my thing. So if you say it, you stole it from me. So that's my thing. I'm always super happy. Like it's been part of my job. People have told me it is your job to come into the office and make sure everybody's happy.
Oh, hey,
like,
you and I share that same similarity.
Yeah. Oops.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. And that is overwhelming.
Oh,
it's overwhelming because
Amen.
you're not allowed to take
I'm
a
in
day
charge
off.
of your happiness? Good God.
Yeah, you're not allowed to take a day off. I couldn't come into the office with a headache or whatever it was because then everybody would be in a bad mood.
Let alone cancer and whatever
It was
else.
insane.
Yeah.
I still had to be positive then. I still had to come in and be like, happy Monday. I feel like crap. Whatever. So people are like, oh, well, you look great and you look so happy. And I'm like, don't let Instagram fool you. Don't let a little bit of makeup fool you. Don't let the fact that I woke up extra early and straightened my hair or curled my hair. That isn't positivity. Mm-hmm. That's just me doing everything I can to present myself in a way where I can fake it. Mm-hmm. But I'm honest with you that I'm having a hard time and that I've been through a lot and that this is my way of trying to stay positive. Mm-hmm. But I'm also not, sometimes positivity can go into the way of putting your head in the sand.
Sure, yeah.
And that is where I don't want to be.
Yeah.
So I've always been the kind of person, and this is my preaching, I want to be a balanced person. Mm-hmm. I want to be positive and negative enough, you know? People always say, you're in charge of how people make you feel. And I'm like, yeah, I am. But also, if you piss me off, I'm going to be pissed off. Like,
yes, you're allowed to be.
Yeah. Why should I have to be all happy just because you piss me off? Yeah. Or no, you know, so I really try to find that balance of who's going to piss me off and why. And when I choose to be happy and positive and why I choose to be positive and when I'm faking it. And a lot of the times I'm faking it. So when people are like, you look so happy. Your Instagram is so happy. You're doing all these things. I'm like, don't believe what Instagram says. I'm not a happy person. No, I am. But you know what I mean? Like, don't believe it.
It's not the whole story.
It isn't. And most of the time, and I'm so honest with people about this too. So now people will know. When I post something on Instagram and it's a good selfie out of probably a good 50 selfies that I just took. No joke. You should see my phone. I'm posting the one that I think I look the best in. And I'm looking for you to say you look great. Yes, that is exactly what I'm doing. So that is so messed up, right? That's just how we are.
Sure.
But sometimes that positivity, I haven't had enough of my own positivity that I need somebody else to just give me that little extra for me to keep going, which is messed up, but it's what keeps me going. And I think more people than not feel the same way.
Totally. Yeah.
So yeah, I think positivity is great, but to a certain degree.
Yeah. Like realistic positivity.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things you've done to try and work on your mindset? So
books and specifically podcasts have become a big, big deal in my life. I have a habit of not finishing books because I feel like I get what I want out of them and then I'm done. I don't need to finish the book.
I know a lot of people that live that way, and I actually like that. I think it's if you get what you need, you don't have to read the whole thing. Or some people have been talking a lot about rereading just certain books rather than trying to add to the number of books that you're reading, actually just rereading some of the most important ones, which I think is just a little bit of awareness too. Yeah. So I like that you said that.
Sometimes I also listen to how I'm feeling. Yeah. I'm starting to listen to how I feel. Okay. I'm not perfect. But if I'm feeling like I'm unconsciously needing something extra, then I go and look for that. So I started one day, I was tired of listening to Jensen and Holz, which is this like true crime podcast. I was like, okay, I'm done trying to listen to people getting murdered. Let's see what else is out there. So I started listening to this random podcast called Often Ambitious.
Oh, me too. Too funny.
I like them.
I do too.
But I can listen to them a little at a time.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I can't listen to them all the time. And I just happened to be listening to certain episodes where it just woke me up and I was like, oh, cool. Or even the book we're reading, Inspired and Unstoppable. I was not happy when I first started listening to it because I just couldn't stand her voice.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm going to have to go listen to her voice now because I haven't yet.
Yeah, you can listen to it after we're done here. But once I got past it, I got her message loud and clear. And now I read through like half of it or listened to it and then I'm done. And now I'm listening to David Goggins and he's great.
I love David Goggins, yeah.
I got what I needed out of him. And I kind of want to finish his book just because I want to see how it ends.
Yeah.
But in my life, my biggest pursuit in life is balance. I want to be balanced. I want to have family, work, church, spiritual life balance. And David is a little extreme, and I get it for his situation. And some of the things apply to me, not all of it. And we disagree on the fact that everybody can do anything. And I don't necessarily think that's true. I think about yesterday when I got home, and I got home around 7 o'clock, and I'd been working out every day for the last 15 days or whatever. And I get home yesterday and I was like, I'm just going to sit down for 30 minutes. That's it. And then I wake up and it's 11:30. And David would be like, who cares if it's 11:30? Get up and work out for an hour.
Yeah.
And I get up from the couch. There's blueberries everywhere. And I'm like, David Goggins would work out right now. And I just walk into my bedroom and go to bed. And that's the difference where I'm like, my body said it was enough.
Yeah.
And I listened to it. He didn't listen to his body at all.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. There's a difference between, I've read that book, we read it as a team, and I agree with you. It's very extreme. Yeah. And I think balance is a really good word.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever completely in total balance, but you're just constantly shifting to what's priority in the moment.
Yeah.
And I think you have a really good example of that.
Yeah. So.
Okay. I'm trying to think if I have any other questions. I think the only other question, which you kind of answered though too, I had kind of asked it earlier, was I'm curious just because, like you said, you've been on the other side of it before when other friends have had to go through cancer or something extreme. And as I think back to when my mom was diagnosed, the first probably 2 years was the hardest because we weren't sure what it meant, what that looked like. And so we were trying to kind of scramble and figure out, what do we do? How do I help? I was like, and I think I told you, I was like, I'm going to make you a business card. Do it. I'm going to make you a business card that has your photo on it and has like an explanation of, yes, I have cancer and here's what to say to me. Because I think that was probably the hardest part for my mom. And I don't know, maybe she'd say something different, but
I would love to talk to her, by the way.
Yeah, we should definitely get you guys together. I think we joined a couple support groups too, and I had wondered if you'd done that, and it was not helpful at the time, actually, so we decided not to attend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about groups or support groups if I can.
Yeah,
I would love
please.
to talk to your mom because first of all, I find her fascinating. Like when she came to speak at the
your words meant everything to her that day when she came to speak at the mastermind.
Really?
Yeah.
I just want to be her friend too.
She
support groups. That. I found it to be so hard to find support groups in Seattle that would benefit someone in my position.
Okay.
I don't know what other people are like, and I don't judge because what you're going through is what you're going through, and no one can judge it. Thankfully, I was able to work and push myself to work because I was pushing myself to work. I mean, I would show up at office feeling like I've always been super smart and sharp and things get done, and I was showing up at work. Side effect of chemo, my brain was, they call it chemo brain, by the way. Google it. I was like, what is happening? I don't know how to do any of this stuff that I was just doing yesterday.
Gosh.
So that was really hard. And the support groups that are available in the Seattle area where Tuesday from 11 to 2 or Friday from 10 to 1.
I'm right in the middle of the day.
And I'm like, I'm working. Why can't we do like a meetup at 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock or on a Sunday at 4 o'clock? Because there was Sunday at like 10 a.m. And I'm like, no, I'm recovering from chemo on Sunday at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
So I've often, it's in my little box back here that I haven't quite dug into. I want to start a support group for people, young adults like myself who out of necessity like me or just because they want to feel normal. For me, it was a combined effort. It was I wanted to feel normal and I needed it. But I was working. But other people don't have to do that, which is great for them. But if you're working and you're like late 20s, early 30s, you don't have that support. You just don't. Kids have all the support, which is great because I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Like those kids have so much strength. I want to have their strength just in general. but especially when they're going through something, they're a huge inspiration for all of us. And then there's support for older people, but there's not a lot of support for people in my, you know, so that was really hard. I didn't have any support. I just had my family and regular people. I mean, regular in quotes, but I didn't have anybody that was going through the same thing. Like, oh, I get it. Showing up to work and feeling like everybody's looking at you, or, oh, that's the cancer girl. I feel like I always have this, like the scarlet letter that says cancer girl in the back of it. Or people ask me like, oh, how'd you get that scar? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to start crying right now. Don't look. You know, like just, we don't have that. And I really want to start that. So if somebody wants to help out or wants to reach out,
I think it's a fabulous idea. People that are working and people that are, your age, that makes total sense that there wouldn't be as much.
Yeah.
It's surprising at the same time with how I kind of think of Seattle as like an advanced area, but there's always ways, I'm sure, that we're not hitting the point. Like we're not.
They help you until you're 18, and I think they forget about you. I think the system forgets about you, and we're here. We're survivors, and I belong to this group on Facebook that I'm not ready to jump into. And I think that's part of it. I'm not ready to jump into it because I'm not in a place where I can necessarily help. I still get very triggered by people that are saying, I have 2 months left to live. My doctor says I have. And I just, I run away from it because that could have been me. And it probably was for a little while when I was in the hospital. Like, I didn't know if I had a week left to live. And it's very triggering for me. And now I'm starting to realize how triggering it is because I'm always like, oh, I can help you. You're good. And then things like that pop up. And then I just go right back into my shell. Like, I'm not strong enough to deal with that yet. But I definitely want to.
That makes sense. Oh, I think you'd be a perfect person to start it.
I hope so.
Yeah. Okay. So my last question is, now that you're kind of like starting to work through your feelings and figure out where you're at, what are some of do you have big dreams and goals of things that you want to do that maybe you didn't have before or you did? Either way.
Yeah. So for the first time in a very long time, I'm in a really good place. Mentally, emotionally, physically. Actually physically feeling like I like the way that I look. I was looking at pictures from a year ago where I was working out super hard and I lost all that fat for my doctor, and looking at myself in the mirror and thinking, oh my God, you're so fat. And I look at that picture and it's like 10 pounds lighter than I am now. And I'm like, what was I thinking when I actually like myself way better now? So I'm definitely in a way better place. My dreams are pretty endless right now. And they kind of revolve around my family. We didn't grow up with a lot. And so my mentality has always been to help them. Like whatever I do, I want to help them. So my dreams are, first of all, to start that support group. I really want to help people. And I want to level up in my job and see what else is next. And my book right now is open to any opportunity that comes to me, whether it's real estate, whether it's not real estate. I'm really open. I've never felt more willing to receive what's out there than I feel at this moment.
That's awesome.
Which I've never felt like that. Even before I went through chemo or before when I was married. When I was married, I was this like, yes, sir, no, sir, wife type situation. So being empowered to be just an independent woman has been great. But yeah, I'm just in this place where I'm open to pretty much anything that life wants to throw at me right now.
Okay.
Good or
keep
bad.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah. Please do.
Yes, I will. Okay. And then lastly, is there just anything else you'd like to share or say to people that are listening?
Yeah, a couple of things. I think number one is if you're going through something like what I went through and you're wanting to talk to someone, please reach out. Quite literally, if you want to text, we'll text. If you want to chat, we'll chat. Whatever you want. I'm always there for you. Just because I know how it's important to talk to someone. And also, talking to a stranger is so much easier than talking to your family. Because you need to be strong for your family. And what was the other? I forgot. Anyways, it's fine.
Well, I can put your cell phone number if you want me to in the show notes.
Yeah.
So people have a way to reach out to you.
Okay.
If there's any handsome gentlemen that are listening as well.
Oh, shoot.
Yes. But they can find you on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Facebook and Instagram. Yeah, just let's hang out. Whatever.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing your story and for answering all my questions, which I'm sure I'll continue to have after this for you. But I think your story, I don't think actually I know it's going to have an impact in ways that you don't even know. And I think that's what the really cool thing is about like audio and visual things like the podcast these days, is that people are going to listen that we don't even know.
Yeah. I hope so.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I just hope it makes a difference for somebody, and they can go read my blog because I get really.
Oh yeah, what's your blog? You should. I'll write it. It's
a WordPress one, but I can give it to you, and it's long because it's got all my names that have been around for a long time.
Okay.
I get really deep and like what I'm actually feeling at the moment in my blog.
Okay.
And also, if anybody knows Richard Sherman, because he got me through all of it, all of my.
Have you met him before?
I met him in Vegas one time, and he's so nice. But I had to focus on something, and I know it's silly, but I focused on watching him play football when he was playing for the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Well, I was sick, and it kept me going.
Okay. Well, I think we can figure out a way to arrange a meeting with Richard. Yeah.
I hope so.
Oh, there are people out there with connections we don't even know.
Exactly.
Yes.
But yeah, the blog is great because people truly get. I gave you like the very quick version of what I went through, but the blog gets real deep and raw.
Okay.
A lot of the times I had maybe a bottle of wine before I actually wrote it. And you can tell because it's all over the place, but it's me. It's me talking.
Feelings. Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So we are back, or I am back, I should say, staring at the green screen since there's no Jesse across the table from me. Looking forward to having him back next week. So that interview with Ada, she really took us through the whole story. I'm here sipping the rest of my mimosa, and like I mentioned in my intro, just very honored and grateful that she would consider sharing her story and letting me ask questions and really dig into the hard stuff, which for a lot of you, if you know me, you kind of know that's my jam. That's what I like to do because if people are open to it, that is actually what means the world to me, is when someone shares part of their heart, part of their real estate in their heart, as Ada put it, with me. So big shout out to Ada for being brave and vulnerable and so open with me today and with all of you as a result. So I really think ultimately one of the things that Ada has taught me today is perseverance and the importance of family and people in your life. And family has always meant everything to me. And it's so easy to get caught up in what your mission is in life. And like I mentioned on the podcast with Ada, I've been so fortunate to not have had a traumatic event truly happen to me like she has experienced, with the death of a sister, a divorce, and then cancer on top of it. And to say she's been through some really, intense experiences doesn't really even say to the depth of what she's had to feel and what she's dealing with now, like she mentioned with her PTSD and things that trigger her as she moves through her day and through her life now. So it makes me go back to the little mini episode that I just did the other day on, I'm trying to remember what I called it, where I talked about sitting in your grief. And I think Ada is one who really has shown us what that looks like. And she didn't have a choice, really, right? She was stuck in the hospital telling us about her experience there, where she just felt trapped. She's amazing. And I hope she truly understands that by listening. Maybe she'll listen back to this podcast and get a different perspective on herself. But man, to help, it's really hard when I see so badly, like someone whose confidence I just want to boost, and there's no way to ultimately that I can do that for her, right? Or do that for anyone. And it doesn't mean I'm ever going to stop trying, because it's amazing to me how many people don't believe in themselves or don't understand how crazy, unbelievably cool and amazing they are. So Ada's one of the most amazing people I've met in my recent couple of months in my life here. So it's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring her on. So I think the last thing I'll say is just that I hope that by sharing her story, it gets you curious, and maybe you talk to someone that you wouldn't have talked to normally. I'm very passionate about the operations community in the real estate world, and I think one of the things I've seen that people don't do is they don't ask people questions. And I'm just talking about in general, like there's a lack of interest in other people, and we really need to delve back into what's important and what's outside of us. And everyone has a story, and I am very passionate and interested in pursuing the story of admin, because I just think purely, if we're just thinking about that position right now and not just the real estate world, but in society and in the world in general, it's a position where people don't normally ask about you, right? I think, and like, this is a whole nother podcast probably, but in real estate, sometimes I feel like there's a lot of people that are just trying to leverage different things and leverage different people. And when you're leveraging someone or manipulating someone, you're not actually trying to build a relationship with them or a friendship with them. And I think that's why I value people that are willing to go deep with me, because it helps build that trust. And so every admin, may not be the admin that wants to go out and change the world. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that they don't have a story to share. So I just hope that this interview today with Ada helps you to get curious, because no matter what, we're actually here for a lot more than just real estate. So thank you guys for listening. And the last thing I'll say too, I think I've said the last thing I'll say is like 3 times. If you have any connections with Richard Sherman, please let me know. Thanks, you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day and week.